Hello friends, in this video I will explain about Angular. So the agenda of this video is to explain what is Angular, what is component in Angular, what are the benefit of component in Angular, and what is key feature of component, and what are the structure of component. And I will show one example of component, how it looks like and how component works together, and will explain about core concept related to the components. So let's talk about what is Angular. Angular is a TypeScript-based open source web application framework developed and maintained by Google to create front-end application or single-page application. It is used for building dynamic single-page web application and enterprise-level applications. Angular provides a structure framework for developing and the front end, focusing on performance, scalability, and maintainability of the application. What is component in Angular application? A component is a basic building block of application user interface. Each Angular application has at least one component. So it is essentially a TypeScript class that interacts with the HTML template to define the structure, appearance, and behavior of a specific portion of the application. So a component can be used to create one page or can be used to just create one portion of the application. Component are foundation of Angular application and enable modular, reusable, and maintainable code. So what are the benefit of component? So components are reusable. So what does it mean? So component can be reused across different part of the application. So for example, like if we are working for an enterprise ERP product, so we need to create a employee based on the job type. So we need to collect the address of the employee. So we have multiple forms to collect the detail about the employee. So we can create one component, address component, and same address component can be used for to create a different employee for the based on the job type. And separation of concern, so the logic, UI, and styling are organized into separate files. So each component has at least three files. One is HTML file, and one CSS file, and one is uh, TypeScript file to maintain the logic. And testability, each component can be tested independently. So key feature of the component are class, template, style, and metadata. So what is metadata? The component decorator is used to define the component metadata such as its selector, template, and style. We will see in the next slide. So structure of the component. So typically Angular component consists of three main files: TypeScript file, HTML file, CSS file. So these three files are combined all together using the component decorator. So below is the example of component. So in the first second line, we are reading the core library. We are reading the component from the core library, and we are declaring the component and grouping all these selector, template URL, and style URL. So selector is the app root. So like if we want to inject this component in our application, then we will use the selector as a app root, and the template URL is a component app.component.html file. So this is the HTML file for our component. And the third is style URL. So it is a CSS file for the designing and look and feel of the component. And now we are exporting the component using the export keyword, export class app component. And we have set up one property title as my Angular app. So HTML template app.component.html looks like div, so it can be in any HTML, and CSS file, so it can be any CSS file for the designing look and feel of the component. And how component works together. So each Angular application has at least one component, so that is called app component. So the root component is bootstrapped at the application level, and other components are nested inside the root component or other child component, forming a component hierarchy. So it becomes, so like if we have one component and then we are injecting other component into this app component, so it becomes like a tree. So yeah, that's it. And the core concept or related to components, so we have data binding. So what is data binding? So we have HTML template, and then we have TS file. So in the TS file, we generally set up the properties. We get the data from API. So to bind that data to the HTML template, we use the data binding. So for example, like if you have multiple controls on your component, it can be like a text box, it can be drop down, or it can be calendar, it can be a text area. So to bind these control with the values, we use the data binding. And what is event finding? So we have button, we can submit the form to the server, so we need to listen those event, then based on those event we need to take the action. So this is generally called event binding. And directives adds behavior to the HTML templates. So suppose we have multiple sections on the HTML component. So based on some certain condition, we need to display some one div, and we need to hide another div, or like based on the user roles. Like for if on one component we have two sections, if a user has an admin role, then we need to display one section. If user is don't have the admin role, then we need to hide that section. So we can change the behavior of the template. So what will be displayed on the UI? So ng4, so ng4 is a directive. So like if we are getting the data from API, so it can be a list of data or a collection. So we can iterate over the list using the ng4 directive and can render the list on the UI. So yeah. And what are the lifecycle hooks? So lifecycle hooks allows component to respond to events during the their life cycle. So like there are multiple lifecycle hooks. I will create another video, so in that video I will explain all the hooks in the Angular component. So for example, we have ng on init. So ng on init is the basic hook. So this is the first hook. So once we have initializing the component, so this hook is getting called. And second is this ng on destroy. So it is the uh, last hook, which is called, like if we have multiple component in the application, so we are navigating from one component to the another component, so we need to destroy or release the resources, then we can use this ng on destroy hook. So like if we have subscription of the observable, then we can unsubscribe those observable on the ng on destroy method. So yeah, that's it. Thank you. Yeah, so I will create another video. So in that video I will explain like how user who is logging into the Angular application can authenticate to the Azure AD application. So we will explain how to register a Azure AD application and then get the token from the Azure AD using the Angular application. Yeah, thank you. Bye.